Yeah, oh my god, you can see her panties. My goodness.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I look at Blue Protocol Star Resonance, and this game has problems. But first, who am I? Who is this distinguished gentleman that speaks through the video and is probably about to shit on a game? I'm just an MMO player, and I'm always on the lookout for a good MMO. I'd like to sink my time into an MMO that's worthy of the time that I'm sinking. And of course, Blue Protocol was one of them. But before we continue to the rest of the video, please like and subscribe so I can share more content with you. Click that button and on with the show. I've heard of this game way back when it was announced in the East. I saw some screenshots, watched some videos, and thought, hey, this looks kind of cool. All of this, of course, was before I really got into games like Genshin Impact and realized there's a whole world of gacha games, mechanics, and deliberate, annoying time sinks out in the realm of gaming. When it comes to Blue Protocol, I was kind of disappointed at what I experienced in my first 2 hours of gameplay, but honestly, after all of those gacha games that I played, I was really not surprised. Blue Protocol Star Resonance is just an MMO in name, and the inevitable haphazardly placed Steam tag. Maybe I'm biased, because I have a lot of classic MMO experience, and perhaps I'm even a grumpy old soul, but hear me out. Let me share my initial experience with this game, and maybe you'll see what I mean. Let's take a look at character creation first. So, I have some problems with character creation. I mean, I don't have problems with this character creation per se, I have problems in general with character creation. I'm not that good. Nonetheless, I like to have my options. And when it comes to Blue Protocol, character creation is as straightforward as it can get. I've spent almost 20 years playing World of Warcraft on and off, so I really don't expect much from my character creation. And like I said before, I often stumble and mess things up when I'm given too many sliders. So I found this approach to be kind of refreshing, but that's just a personal opinion. I know a lot of players will want more in-depth character creation, so I don't know, that's for me that's up in the air. But I gotta admit, it was refreshing to just choose from a list of features and carry on with my day. Now the classes looked interesting enough. It seemed like it had an okay variety, just sufficiently covering the Holy Trinity. There were 8 classes to choose from. Let's go through them. A Verdant Oracle. This looks like an easy mode healing class that creates rings that heal and buff. Heavy Guardian. For tank players who think carrying a shield is beneath them. Grab 2-handed weapon and go pow pow. Marksman. Because every game must have that guy at the back who's never in danger and can AFK without anyone noticing. Frost Mage, a cool range DPS that has a slightly more complicated rotation than the Marksman. Shield Knight, a Paladin. Wind Knight, the Monkey King simulator. Stormblade, nice assassin vibes. And finally, Beat Performer. This is probably the most interesting class of them all, as a rock and roll support class that deals damage and heals. It kind of reminds me of the post-Legion Discipline Priest. So I went with whichever one was tanky and more paladin-like, because I like paladins. That was the Shield Knight. And off we go to our adventure. Like any typical anime-style game, Blue Protocol begins with a mystery. The main character has no memory and has to learn who they are through a series of quests and stories. The game starts pretty smoothly and seems promising at first. The art style is great. It's not crazy cel-shaded like older anime-style games. For example, if you remember the Naruto fighting games, they are painfully cel-shaded. The animations and art are coherent. This makes the transitions from cinematics to visual novel and from visual novel style dialogue to gameplay feel seamless. To an extent, of course. After a certain point, it seems like voice acting has been cut from the budget. Well, yeah, of course, there are a lot of cinematics and conversations in the first 2 hours of the game. This is, of course, for me, one of the major problems I had with Blue Protocol. When I begin a new game, I expect to be given a steady pace of combat and story. But this is not a Western MMO, my friends. No. People like me do not get what we are used to. If you played any Gacha game or JRPG, you'll know that you'll have to slog through endless, meaningless conversations before you get to enjoy any sensible form of gameplay that lasts more than 2 minutes. I'm not joking. As I tried to navigate the story and what I believe is an attempt at a tutorial, I was constantly dragged here and there, talking to characters, following them around, with a whole lot of exposition being dumped on me. There was no time to take in the world, no time to slowly learn what's what. A lot was happening in the world, and I kinda struggled to keep up. Look, you gotta understand, I'm not as patient as I used to be. And maybe that's why this kind of game is not really for me. However, I have played and still play games that last over 100 hours long, so time is really not an issue here. It's how we spend that time. Regardless, the game looks great. The environment, a wonder to behold. I liked how big and busy the city was, yet I wasn't really able to enjoy it because I wanted to get to experiencing combat. I wanted to see how it felt to fight and use my abilities. I wanted to learn. I wanted to just play the game. Nope. Talk to this, walk to that, receive a dump of Gacha mobile game styled red dots in a menu that has more buttons than any game sensibly needs. At this point, I had to accept the reality of what I was playing, and it would be another hour before I could experience any form of satisfying gameplay. And the gameplay is satisfying. Abilities and attacks react well to my inputs, the sound effects are impactful, and the animations are great. We have just enough skills that work well enough with each other to make rotations interesting. But again, I repeat, this is not a Western game. With the good also comes the bad. Most of your base rotation is given to you all at once. And in true Black Desert fashion, they're all individually viable enough to kill enemies of that level. As a result, you really don't get the chance to slowly learn what an ability can actually do before unlocking a new one. Now, I may not be an expert, but I have played these games for a long time. I may not be a game developer, but I am kind of in the industry. And I say this with the best of interests for the future of game development and gaming. A well-designed MMO would give you these abilities one by one and put you in combat situations to use them. I will give the greatest example ever, World of Warcraft. In World of Warcraft, classes learn new abilities every 2 levels, giving them enough combat opportunities to commit these abilities to their muscle memory and learn what they do. I feel like Eastern MMOs are a kind of a mixed bag of time management. They really don't let you play the game because they give you all sorts of nonsense dialogue and waste your time. But then they just rush you through combat and you gotta learn all that stuff along the way. Thankfully, you can just take the time to read what the abilities do. But you also need time to commit those abilities into your muscle memory, and that requires actually engaging combat. Blue Protocol, and not the old Blue Protocol, because apparently this is different. Blue Protocol Star Resonance, in its first 2 hours, offered me so little combat with so many interruptions in between, I had to go back and reread the abilities and practice them more than I should have. Is it a skill issue? Most certainly. Definitely a skill issue. But also kind of a design issue. Going back to the tutorial taking 2 hours for me, the only reason all of this took 2 hours and not 5 is because I started skipping all the conversations, completely losing context of the story. Yeah, sure, I could sit around and learn properly, but there needs to be a balance in how you introduce the game to the player. You need to mix story with gameplay so that they have a different pace while going along and it doesn't become too overwhelming. I started becoming more agitated as I went through the game. Blue Protocol Star Resonance is an awesome looking game. It feels great to play when it lets you, but the first 2 hours were such a miserable experience, I ended up just uninstalling it. You need to have a lot of experience with this kind of game and actually enjoy this gameplay pacing to be able to go through this first part of the game and enjoy the rest of it as it is meant to be enjoyed. I'm sure that after going through all the parts I hated about it, there's a whole world to explore. There are a lot of friends to be made and dungeons to be delved. I read a lot about how people are having fun with the later content. I feel Blue Protocol's potential is weighed down by its gacha tendencies. But hey, at least the game has fashion, right?